I'm going to admit something that shocked me. A few years ago, I read an article about narcissistic traits, and to my horror, I saw myself in some of them. Not all, but enough to make me uncomfortable. And if you're honest, maybe you've done the same. And thought, wait, am I a narcissist? Don't worry. Today, we're going to unpack the truth about INFJs and narcissists, because the overlap is real, the confusion is common, and the consequences, when empathy collides with manipulation, can be life-changing. Stick with me because this video is going to give you something most YouTube creators don't. A clear, science-backed roadmap of why INFJs attract narcissists and how to protect yourself. You'll learn why INFJs sometimes mistake themselves for narcissists, how narcissists target empathy and intuition, the patterns to watch for in romance, family, work, and friendships. By the end, you'll not only understand the dynamic, you'll have tools to thrive. And if you want more, this is just one in a whole series on INFJs. Don't leave until you see where to binge next. INFJs are rare. We're the quiet thinkers, the emotional translators, the advocates who carry more than most people realize. Narcissists, they're skilled at reading rooms, craving attention, and seeking control. So what happens when an INFJ's empathy meets a narcissist's ego? It's often a collision course, and the INFJ usually gets hurt. The overlap that creates confusion. Here's the first twist. Some INFJs see themselves in narcissistic traits. Why? Because caring deeply can sometimes look like control. Intuition can sometimes look like manipulation. And self-reflection, it can look like self-focus. But here's the key difference. Motivation. INFJs act from empathy and values. Narcissists act from ego and self-preservation. And understanding that difference is your first line of defense. Emotional and cognitive contrasts. Empathy. INFJs are highly empathic. Their brains react strongly to others' emotions. Neuroscience shows that people with high empathy have mirror neuron activation when observing others' emotions, a mechanism that lets us feel others' pain or joy internally. In contrast, narcissistic individuals typically have a profound empathy deficit. Research consistently finds that people with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, show markedly impaired affective empathy. They do not really feel others' emotions, even if they can sometimes understand them cognitively. In fact, narcissists may use a preserved cognitive empathy manipulatively. They understand what victims feel, enough to mimic concern, while remaining emotionally detached. This explains why narcissists can seem charming or attentive only to use that information later to exploit others. Narcissists are often bold, domineering, and crave attention. Grandiose narcissists may boast or belittle others. Covert narcissists may sulk or undermine others quietly. Importantly, narcissists frequently manipulate. They may feign empathy or use flattery as a tactic. Studies describe how narcissists' empathy is channeled in exploitation and manipulation, reflecting affective dissonance between understanding others and actually caring. In short, INFJs give genuine empathy and support, whereas narcissists often give only a veneer of empathy to control others. Emotional focus. INFJs are motivated by altruism and authenticity. They seek meaningful mutual connections and are often guided by strong personal values. Narcissists, by contrast, are self-focused. Their primary concern is their own status or image. They typically lack real interest in others' inner lives. As one review notes, NPD is defined by self-absorption, grandiosity, exploitation of others, and lack of empathy. Why INFJs attract narcissists. Narcissists love empathy. They crave the attention, validation, and understanding that INFJs give so naturally. INFJs hate conflict. Narcissists thrive on it. INFJs believe people can change. Narcissists believe people should serve them. This is why INFJs get targeted. They're healers in a world where some people only want to take. Because INFJs are so empathic and caring, they can be attractive targets for narcissists. INFJs tend to assume the best in others and may ignore red flags. highly sensitive and empathic people are especially susceptible to gaslighting and other abuses. Psychologists note that sensitive people often doubt their own perceptions and accommodate abusive situations too long. Narcissists are drawn to INFJs' compassion. One expert blog observes INFJs often attract toxic, narcissistic, or emotionally needy people because they want to help them, some without giving much in return. In practice, INFJs' kindness and willingness to forgive can allow narcissistic partners or friends to exploit them. Their reluctance to confront or cause conflict means INFJs may endure manipulation without protest. In sum, INFJ sensitivity and altruism, normally strengths, can leave them vulnerable to a narcissist's control. So now that we understand why INFJs are magnets for narcissists, your empathy, your ability to see the good in people, your tendency to avoid conflict, the next question is, what do narcissists actually do once they're in your world? Because it's one thing to attract them, it's another to recognize how they operate. Let's break down the specific tactics narcissists use on INFJs so you can spot them early and protect yourself. Tactics narcissists use: if you've ever felt crazy, guilty, or trapped, you weren't weak, you were manipulated. And that's why self-awareness is non-negotiable. Signs of narcissistic abuse, INFJ perspective. Gaslighting. Narcissists frequently use gaslighting, denying reality, lying, trivializing, to confuse their victim. Empathic INFJs who trust their emotions may be made to doubt their own memory or sanity. Psychology Today notes highly sensitive and empathic people are particularly susceptible to gaslighting, which can make them continually question their own judgment. Projection. Narcissists often project their own faults onto others. For example, they may accuse the INFJ of selfishness or of being too sensitive, even though it is the narcissist who is self-centered. Clinicians describe projection in narcissistic abuse as dumping unwanted feelings onto the victim. INFJs who are self-critical by nature may internalize these projections and blame themselves in ways that fit the narcissist's narrative. INFJs who have endured narcissistic abuse often exhibit certain warning signs. Chronic self-doubt and confusion. The INFJ may frequently second-guess their memory or judgment, a hallmark of gaslighting. They might say, "I always feel crazy and anxious around them." Constant anxiety, guilt, or depression. Empathetic people often internalize blame. Clinical observers note that narcissistic abuse can lead to long-lasting trauma and even complex PTSD. INFJs may feel persistently anxious, drained, or depressed and may suffer sleep problems or panic. Low self-esteem and loss of identity. Because INFJs deeply care what others think, the narcissist's criticism and projection can erode the INFJ's self-worth. Covert narcissistic abuse, in particular, is less visible and can leave targets questioning whether the mistreatment occurred. INFJs may wonder, was I really too sensitive or was I abused? Context and dynamics of abuse. Romantic relationships. An INFJ narcissist romance often follows a pattern of idealization followed by devaluation. Narcissists may love bomb an INFJ, showering them with praise to win their trust, then gradually withdraw kindness and escalate criticism. INFJs, feeling responsible, may blame themselves for the problems. Gaslighting and blame shifting from the narcissist can leave the INFJ doubting reality and feeling guilty. Over time, an empath like an INFJ may develop anxiety, depression, or complex PTSD symptoms as a result of the chronic emotional abuse. Trauma bonds can form when the narcissist alternates charm with cruelty. Family roles. In a family with a narcissistic parent or relative, INFJs or sensitive siblings often become empaths or caregivers. The narcissistic family member may manipulate the INFJ by projecting blame or competing for attention. Narcissistic parents may subject INFJ children to projective identification, forcing the child to carry the parent's unwanted emotions. The INFJ's natural compassion may be twisted into guilt or self-doubt. Over years, an INFJ in a narcissistic family can internalize the abuse as personal failure, making recovery especially challenging. Workplace. Narcissistic bosses or coworkers can exploit INFJ's diligence and cooperative style. In corporate settings, narcissistic traits are disproportionately common in leadership. A narcissistic manager might ignore an INFJ's contributions, take credit, or undermine them if they feel threatened. INFJ employees who avoid politics and seek harmony may become targets of covert aggression. Research suggests up to 18% of CEOs score high on narcissism, and narcissistic leadership tends to create competitive, unstable work environments with high turnover and conflict. INFJs in such settings often suffer burnout and disillusionment. Friendships. INFJs are likely to attract narcissistic or needy friends because of their empathy. A narcissistic friend may monopolize conversations or expect constant support without reciprocation. Over time, INFJs may feel taken for granted. Because INFJs value loyalty, they may hesitate to end a one-sided friendship, even as they grow resentful. In any relationship role, narcissists seek to control and dominate, while INFJs strive to nurture and heal. This clash often leads to emotional exhaustion for the INFJ. If this is resonating, pause for a second and like the video. Comment below if you've ever read Narcissistic Traits and wondered if they applied to you, and subscribe. We've built an entire INFJ series to help you dive deeper, the science behind it. Let's go inside the brain for a moment. INFJs light up in regions tied to empathy and pattern recognition. We're mirror neurons that let you feel someone's pain as if it's your own. Narcissists, many studies show impaired emotional empathy. They can see what you feel but don't share it. Neuroscience of empathy versus manipulation. Neuroscience provides insight into these dynamics. Empathic experiences activate specific brain regions. For example, fMRI studies show that seeing another person's disgust or pain activates the anterior insula and cingulate cortex in the observer's brain, the same areas as when experiencing the emotion oneself. In other words, the observation of facial expression of disgust activated the same sector of the anterior insula. This mirror neuron empathy circuitry underpins why INFJs feel others' emotions so strongly. In Narcissists, imaging studies reveal structural differences. A neuroimaging study found that higher narcissistic traits correlate with increased gray matter volume in parts of the prefrontal cortex and insula, are regions involved in self-processing and emotion. Paradoxically, while the insula is crucial for empathy and bodily feeling, narcissists may use their cognitive awareness of these circuits to manipulate rather than sympathize. Altogether, the brain data support the psychological picture. INFJs have robust empathic resonance, whereas narcissists have altered empathy circuitry skewed towards self-focus, breaking the cycle. Here's what you need to know to break free. Boundaries are not selfish, they're survival. Ask yourself, is this my emotion or theirs? Learn to say no to small things. It trains your mind for the big ones. Find one trusted voice, a friend, therapist, mentor, to keep you grounded. These are simple but powerful steps. It's about protecting your energy and remembering that your empathy is a gift, not a weakness. Turning pain into power. The moment you decide to value your own peace as much as you value others is the moment you stop being a target. INFJs don't need to become colder. They need to become wiser. And when you do, you'll attract people who value your depth instead of draining it. Recovery strategies for INFJs. Healing from narcissistic abuse requires time, support, and self-care tailored to an empathic personality. INFJs can benefit from strategies that rebuild their self-trust and boundaries. Set firm boundaries. The INFJ door slam. INFJs may eventually realize that they must cut off contact to protect themselves. While painful, this can be empowering. Studies note that maintaining distance is often the healthiest response when a relationship has been deeply hurtful. Therapy and talking it through. Connecting with a trusted friend or therapist is crucial. INFJs often need assurance that their experiences are valid. One INFJ guide recommends talking about past pain with a trusted and accepting friend or family member can help INFJs heal, and emphasizes finding a therapist they trust. In therapy, techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR can address trauma and rebuild self-esteem. Reconnecting with values. INFJs often derive purpose from helping others. In recovery, you can redirect this toward healthy causes. Volunteering or creative pursuits that affirm strengths can rebuild confidence. Over time, INFJs learn to give care selectively and not ignore their own needs. Long-term effects may linger, occasional anxiety or distrust, but with support, INFJs can heal. Clinicians stress that victims can recover fully when they distance themselves and receive appropriate therapy. For example, therapy that acknowledges INFJs' sensitivity can teach them to distinguish their own feelings from others' projections. INFJs often emerge wiser and more self-aware, using their trauma to set healthier boundaries and appreciate truly reciprocal relationships. Self-compassion and perspective. Because INFJs tend to blame themselves, learning self-kindness is key. As one expert notes, INFJs should treat themselves as compassionately as they treat others. Mindfulness or meditation can help INFJs observe their thoughts without judgment. Simple affirmations, e.g., I have worth apart from others' opinions, can counter the negative beliefs planted by the narcissist. Journaling and creativity. INFJs often process experiences deeply. Writing or artistic outlets allow them to express feelings safely. By reflecting on the abuse from a distance, on paper, INFJs can gain clarity and reinforce their own perspective of events. Support groups or communities. Finding other survivors, especially other empathic types, can reduce isolation. Hearing others' stories reminds INFJs they are not at fault. Hence, we now have a community of like-minded individuals. Hello, my fellow INFJs. Your comments are therapeutical. Thank you. Empathy-driven support rather than judgmental friends helps us recover trust in relationships. This is just one piece of the puzzle. If you're an INFJ or you love one, binge the entire INFJ series on this channel. We're covering INFJ and ADHD, INFJ and autism, INFJ and leadership, and more. Hit subscribe, share your story in the comments, and keep learning. Because the more you know yourself, the harder it is for anyone to break you.